Every intelligent life form left in the galaxy was obliterated.
The Halo rings lie at the heart of the Halo franchise, and while they make up a huge part of the franchise's lore, the origins are shrouded in mystery. Said to have originated about 100,000 years before the Human Covenant War, the Halo rings could be activated by some chosen individuals who wielded immense power after inheriting these ancient artifacts. Of course, these few words don't begin to capture the intensity of the Halo rings' powers, and it's time to dive right in and explore these precious structures in great detail. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origin and purpose of the Halo Array. Also known as the Sacred Rings, the Halo Array was constructed by the Forerunners all across the galaxy in an attempt to deal with the deadly Flood. This Flood can be best explained as a parasitic extragalactic entity capable of infecting all sentient life forms in the galaxy, and the Forerunners decided to create the Halos to combat this menace. The idea behind their creation was that the Halo Array would eradicate all sentient beings in its radius before the Floods could get any access to them. The array consisted of 7 ring-shaped worlds that were capable of eradicating all sentient life in the galaxy when combined, and the Forerunners' plan was a success, as they managed to starve the Flood to near extinction by refusing to let it come in contact with any life. While the Flood species had mostly gone extinct, it did cling on to a few Halo installations, such as Installation 4 and 5. All these installations were constructed at different prominent spots. For instance, Installation 4 obtained the gas giant threshold, while Installation 3 circled a terrestrial planet. Although they were located thousands of light years apart, they were linked together with the help of Installation 00, which could control them despite being situated outside the galaxy. The Halo Array primarily had one responsibility. Initially, the mass sterilization protocol that could extend across 25,000 light years. This protocol involved using specific tuned pulses of energy to destroy the most basic biological structures of any sentient life. Since its creation, the Halo Array was activated once, about 100,000 years ago, to defeat the Flood's parasitic intents. During this incident, the Forerunners responsible for the creation of the Halo also sacrificed their own lives to ensure that no life form remained behind and accidentally facilitated the Flood. While the Halo Array has not been activated as a network after that, individual Halo rings were activated on 4 occasions at locations such as Forerunner, Charum-Hakor, Sanshium Quarantine System, and the Ecumen capital. Eventually, individual beings attempted to activate the entire Halo Array, and John 117 was the first one to try and activate the Alpha Halo. However, this Halo was soon disabled by the UNSC's AI Cortana, while the chieftain of the Juralhane Tartarus forced Commander Keyes to activate the Delta Halo. These incidents followed a similar pattern, and eventually the Prophet of Truth compelled Sergeant Johnson to activate the Ark, but had very little success with it. The Forerunner Council initially began working on the Halo Array about 300 years after the Flood first approached the galaxy, and they hired the master builder, Faber, to construct the array. At this time, the extreme faction of builders was determined to resort to the most intense measures to prevent the spread of the Flood, and the ideas were opposed by the Prometheans. While the builders had to fight an unending battle for the Ecumen Council's approval to start working on the Halo designs, they eventually succeeded and got the permission to commence work. They created a bunch of prototypes and even sent an installation to orbit around a rogue planet as an experiment. In the meantime, a life worker, known as the Librarian, began documenting samples of every species found across the galaxy in an attempt to preserve life forms for future rebirth, in case the Flood wiped out their population. While the Librarian preserved sentient species, his wife shouldered the responsibility of creating shield worlds where these species could grow and survive in the future. As attempts to preserve life were in full force, 12 Halos were finally constructed under Faber's watchful eye, who commissioned Wide Hands to Forgers Guild to construct the Ark's installation. This started out as the initial design for the Halo Array, and only one of them was approved for further construction. Construction and design. The approved design became known as Installation 7, and it was soon followed by 6 more installations created at the Lesser Ark. While these installations turned out to be more powerful, the Council decided that they should not be used at the risk of giving the builders too much power. While these halos were almost ready, a builder named Maker of Moons stepped up to enhance their designs and improve their stability. In its initial stage, the ring generated an insane amount of particle reconciliation debt upon movement, and the Maker of Moons suggested that they should commission a new arc. While Faber was initially hesitant, he agreed to roll out a new series of rings, and the builders decided to make good use of this time to save more species in the meantime. On the other hand, the master builder decided to build this new arc in secrecy, and he further created 6 more halos that were hidden away from everyone except him. After several decades of work, the final array was ready just in time for the Forerunners' clash with the Flood. It consisted of 7 halo rings, about 10,000 kilometers in diameter. The rings were designed to run with the help of advanced AI models that were fitted on each ring in the form of a single monitor. These monitors ensured that the installation's construction and sentinels in charge see to its timely construction and repairs and run activation simulations in the face of danger. While the monitor was a supreme intelligent authority, the Halo installation also had a bunch of sentinels who were the ground soldiers that ensured the smooth functioning of the construct. They were equipped to deal with minor threats such as small-scale floods or device malfunctions, but they could not do much in the face of a major crisis and had to rely on sentinel majors or enforcers to step in. Besides the sentinels, the constructors on board the installation maintained the temperature and climate conditions and ensured that all the Forerunner structures were in proper shape. Besides the monitor, all other constructs were located at Sentinel production facilities high above in the Halo's atmosphere. They typically stayed out of sight and were known to be storage units with a limitless supply of raw materials that might come in handy during any repairs. Environment. Life on the Halo rings. The Halo rings were initially created to be devices that eradicated all sentient life, but they also had other notable uses that helped human survival. To begin with, they were designed to have natural habitats for humans, among other animals, and the librarian did a whole lot of research on Faber's original designs to ensure that these designated spots were habitable. In fact, Faber tested the functionality of these Halo rings by exposing a few specimens to the Flood and then destroying their bodies to ensure that they eradicate the virus. After these initial tests, the Halo installations were designed to include a wide variation of ecosystems and environments, and Halo Installation 4 and 5 had ecosystems ranging from warm, temperate forests that contained swamp to snow-covered tundra environments. These terrains might have a natural appearance at first, but they were all created from raw materials extracted by the Stratos Sentinels. These Sentinels further deposited these materials at the installation site, where huge terraforming factories deposited them across the entire installation to form the bottom surface. To begin with, these factories installed a layer of metallic planets below the terrain surface, before clothing the bare site with water bodies and land masses such as slopes and hills. While some had occurred naturally, other landscapes, such as the quarantine zone or the lake on Installation 5, were carefully created by Faber. As a personal touch, the librarian also worked on a special conservation project that would include indigenous life forms that could survive on the Halos. In addition to forming the basic landscape of the Halo rings, the terraforming factories contained the nitrogen-oxygen compound used to fake the atmosphere on the Halo. This atmosphere was created by leaking the nitrogen-oxygen to the surface and then tugging it in place with the help of centripetal force. This ensured that the atmosphere did not leak beyond the ring world and remained intact without spreading to all of space. Firing mechanism and effect. After ensuring that the installation had top-notch designs and environment variations, the Halo Array's final 7 installations could fire lethal radiation that could kill all life forms within a radius of 25,000 light-years. While these installations were capable of being on their own, they could sync together to sterilize the entire galaxy in one shot. The firing mechanism worked with the help of cross-phased supermassive neutrinos that would burst into the atmosphere and produce a harmonic frequency capable of destructing the nervous system of any being in its surroundings. These bursts could target any microscopic being in their radius, ranging from biological nervous systems to mysterious neutral physical constructs. In some special cases, This firing system could be fine-tuned to only target specific beings with a particular neutral complexity. However, some beings were spared from the effects of the firing mechanism, and simple life forms such as microbes, fungi, algae, and mosses were mostly safe from it, owing to the fact that they did not have a neural system. Some higher-order organisms were also safe from the ring's pulse firing, but even they experienced some discomfort when the rings were fired up. Typically, the firings were of two kinds, sentient and neoteric array. While the sentient array killed all life forms in its vicinity and resulted in a total collapse in the ecosystem, the neoteric array was used to target higher-order life forms with complex neural systems. These halo rings were powered by vacuum energy, much like most of the technology created by the Forerunners. When the weapon was about to be fired, its pulse was amplified by a bunch of pulse generators that would ensure that all the vacuum energy was concentrated at the center of the halo ring before it was blasted off. As soon as the rings were set off, the radiation from them traveled at supersonic speed, and any activations at Installation 00 immediately set off a chain reaction among all other installations. As their radiation fields came in contact with one another, the halo's energies amplified furthermore, and their effect was the most powerful when they were all fired together. In this case, the array could cleanse the entire galaxy of sentient life, and the final array consisted of 6 halos spanning the radius of 25,000 light-years. To put it in perspective, these halo rings could effectively kill all life in the Milky Way, an upgrade from the original halo design, which could cover a radius of 14,000 light-years. In case the activation process had to be cancelled, the vacuum energy that was fired in the center of the hub would violently implode and then dissipate into nothingness without causing much harm. Once the halo rings were set off, they would target the nervous systems of all sentient life and kill them off at once. While this ensured that there was no life left for the flood to corrupt, the halo effect did not disintegrate these bodies. This meant that these lifeless bodies would decay and rot for eternity. And the life workers came up with measures such as spraying them with a solution that would instantly decay the rotting biomatter. Since all these bodies were instantly desiccated, there was no record of their bodies or bones lying behind, and even archaeological studies could not dig up enough evidence of any halo array firing in the past. The halo rings were completely lethal to anyone in their paths, but life forms could avoid being in their way by hiding in a shield world. Sometimes the entire firing could be nullified by firing the installation in an incomplete state, and this was once demonstrated when Installation 8 was fired incompletely. Containment and research facilities. While we have already explored some of Halo's most fascinating features, we must also shed light on the containment and research facilities that came with these installations. To begin with, every Halo ring had a control room, home to the installation's primary base of operations known as the core. The core was home to many weapons, but its most important element was the activation index, which could trigger the sterilization protocol. In addition to the core, the Halo consisted of a gigantic library protected behind a wall with a super powerful energy shield. These preventative measures were taken to ensure the safety of the index, a semi-solid holographic representation of the data files that held the secrets behind the ring's activation. The ring could activate its protocol only if a reclaimer extracted the holographic data files and then inserted them in the core's activation index, and it was certainly no easy feat to wield such power. Among other things, the Halo held some flood containment research files that were stored in the research facilities developed by the Sentinels to prevent further disasters. In addition to storing data on how to deal with the floods, the Halo installations included cartographer facilities that could guide future users in navigating the installation and studying its inner passage and complex networks in detail. Forerunner flood war and activation history. After installing the Halos, Mendicant Bias decided to test out their handiwork and fired Installation 07 in the Charam-Hakor and Fawn-Hakor systems. While the Halo rings were set on a low power mode at the time, they managed to eradicate all sentient life on the planet and then unleashed an extant entity known as the Primordial Form, its centuries-long captivity on the planet. After unleashing the Primordial, Mendicant Bias decided to bring it to the Halo and question it. but the entity managed to corrupt the bias after about 43 years of interrogations. In due course of time, Faber decided to use the halo to subdue a rebellion on Janja Korm's homeworld, San Shayum. While Faber believed he was in the right, the Forerunners set up a tribunal against Faber and even took the other 11 halo installations to the capital to decommission them. In the midst of this chaos, the Primordial continued to corrupt Mendicant Bias, which resulted in him showing up to the capital with the missing Installation 07. Mendicant Bias attempted to attack the capital and even control the other halos, and it was partially successful in its mission as it seized control over 5 of the other installations. In retaliation, the capital destroyed one of these 5 halos with the help of the Forerunner fleets and the tidal forces at their disposal. However, Mendicant Bias continued to be a threat, and the Forerunners decided to open a slipspace portal and send the rest of the installations back to Installation 00. While 6 of the halos broke into slipspace, the Omega Halo managed to escape right before the portal closed up. Even though the ring was mostly destroyed to a point where its radius was reduced to about a 10,000 kilometer radius, its components and surviving biological species were sent to the Ark. Here the Halo underwent some repairs so that it could function in sync with the other 6 halos, and then it was sent to its final station in the galaxy. In the following years, the Omega Halo and the reinvented Installation 07 remained the only rings that were not destroyed by the floods. Eventually, the Forerunner flood war grew more intense, and the Ecumen's leaders sought shelter in the Greater Ark, where the Omega Halo was also situated. As the flood inched closer, they decided to send the Isodidact to the Omega Ring, where they fired the Omega Halo with some help from the Master Builder. This firing cleansed the large Magellanic cloud and eradicated all life, but the flood managed to reach the Omega Halo and the Greater Ark and destroyed both of them. In the meantime, the Isodidact traveled to the Lesser Ark and worked on the library project by collecting all the species indexes and then distributing them to their respective installations. They further installed monitors and assigned them members according to the installations they were fitted on, hoping that this would serve as a memorial for the Forerunners. After ensuring everything was in place, the Isodidact used the offensive bias to deploy the final 7 rings that made a part of the final Halo array. While the Flood and the Mendicant Bias prepared to attack the final array, the Isodidact fired Installation 04 to set off the array, and soon enough, the entire galaxy was exposed to the Halo ring's vacuum energy. All sentient life in the entire galaxy fell victim to the array's pulse, and it was not until several years later that the Forerunners repopulated the universe. In the next few years, it was revealed that a species known as the Zalanans somehow managed to survive the array firing. The Forerunners were skeptical of these species taking over the world, so they decided to send Installation 07 to their planet's orbit and then lure them by setting up a meeting with them. They refused to let these species assert dominance and decided to imprison the Zalanans in the ring and study them further. Rediscovery of the Human Covenant War. Over the next 100,000 years, the halos were primarily dormant except for some minor activations, while ecosystems across the galaxy suffered irreparable damage due to their past firings. The array's activations had caused several species to go extinct, and the damage was so blatantly obvious that it showed up on fossil records even after the Forerunners used a solution to dissolve the bodies. While the library's project had indexed several species for survival, some did not survive on their new homeworlds on the halos. As time passed, a multi-species alliance known as the Covenant was established on the grounds that the Halo array was the source of a divine wind. Unfortunately, this establishment's beliefs could not have been more misguided, as they believed that the Halo was a tool through which the Forerunners took physical form, and that they could also attain godhood by activating the array. Eventually, a UNSC cruiser's shipboard named AI Cortana stumbled across the coordinates of Installation 04 with the help of some Forerunner artifacts that were buried deep within the Reach. They soon arrived at the installation's orbit, but they were taken down by the Covenant's ship in a face-off that eventually shaped up into the Battle of Installation 04. After the battle was subdued, the Covenant continued to explore Installation 04 and accidentally unleashed the flood after stumbling across a flood containment facility. While they managed to contain the flood in no time, a bunch of Marines ended up unleashing the flood once again, while looking for a storage unit that might contain Covenant weapons. This triggered the start of a battle between UNSC forces, Sentinels, the Covenant, and the Flood, a chaotic event where attacks kept pouring in from all four parties. Finally, this madness came to an end when Spartan John 117 detonated the fusion energies on the UNSC cruiser Pillar of Autumn. These fusion engines directly impacted the structural integrity of the Halo ring, causing it to shred into pieces. Soon enough, the Installation 04 ring was nothing but debris floating across space, and a major chunk of it directly hit the moon of Bias and led to its destruction. In due course of time, a UNSC freighter discovered Installation 03, and the Covenant later discovered Installation 05. However, the Flood had already gotten to the installation, and it had spread so wide that its monitor was also infected. This gave way to another four-way battle just like the one on Installation 04, and it ended up with the Flood conjuring up a gravemind to escape the ring and spread across the galaxy in the UNSC, in amber-clad. In the midst of the chaos, the installation was nearly activated by the chieftain of the Jiralhane, but Commander Keyes put a stop to this by removing the activation index from the Halo ring's core. After the stressful ordeal, the human survivors decided to return to Earth and confront the Covenant, who had traveled to our world in pursuit of a large structure that they believed to be the Ark. Soon enough, the Covenant arrived on Earth in the key ship, Anodan Spirit, but was surprised to learn that the structure was merely a generator to a portal to the Ark. In no time, the Covenant learned that the Ark was structured in the form of an artificial world located outside the galaxy, and they headed there with humans and Sangheili forces right on their toes. While the Covenant hoped to gain remote control over all the installations through the Ark, the humans were determined to stop them, and they arrived at the Ark around the same time the Flood reached the Ark through the Gravemind. As it turned out, the Gravemind had managed to infect the Covenant's capital city, also known as High Charity, and things went down as all these forces faced each other at the Ark. While the Flood was unleashed, John 117, 343 Guilty Spart, and Arbiter Thale the Dumb learned that the Ark had been building a new Installation 04 after the destruction of the old one. Since this new installation was almost ready, the humans devised a genius plan to activate it on the Ark to stop the Flood, even if it resulted in the complete destruction of this brand new Halo ring. Post-war developments and threats. Around 2553, the UNSC took measures to search for all remaining Halo installations and decommission them. In the next 4 years, they even started studying the array to figure out the decommissioning process. They had set up facilities on board Installation 03 and 05, while the UNSC also inspected Installation 00 with the help of automated probes and the UNSC Rubicon vessel. In due course of time, Dr. Luther Mann found some notes on sarcophagus, which led him to come across Installation 07 around 2555. Soon enough, they sent an ONI research group to study the ring, and they discovered that this Halo ring, as well as other rings, was set to go into activation mode in about 5 weeks' time. These rings had been set to initiate the standby false safe protocol, and the only way this could have happened was if someone activated the array at the Ark. A series of events followed as the Retriever Sentinels attacked Earth while the UNSC joined hands with the Swords of Sanghelios to investigate what was going on at the Ark. They traveled there to discover that the Ark's monitor, the 000 Tragic Solitude, had gone rogue after witnessing the large-scale destruction that the Ark and the Forerunners had orchestrated. With some help from Bobby Kodiak, the Monitor initiated the installation's activation mode to trick humanity and steal their resources to repair the Ark and eradicate all sentient life in space. However, Dr. Luther Mann managed to undo all of these, and Bobby Kodiak then sacrificed his own life to get rid of the monitor for once and all. In the following years, Installation 00 decided to create a new installation to replace the lost one, and this halo was kept in the Ark's foundry for the time being. In the following year, a Sangheili terrorist used an element from the destroying Installation 04 to construct a bioweapon and attack the outer colony of Cedra. This bioweapon's creation was possible due to human smugglers who had been mining the elements from the Halo ring and smuggling them into the black market. An ONI Cedran Colonial Guard team came together to track them down, but sadly, most of the team members were killed in the mission. ONI Lieutenant Locke and Cedran Private Mesa managed to escape. At the same time, Colonel Aiken laid down his life to destroy every last piece of this element, even if it meant blowing the place up with a nuclear weapon. As the threats winded down, humans returned to the Ark in 2557 to set up a research outpost with the help of a smart AI Isabel. They started ordering retriever sentinels to strip mine any lifeless system on the base to repair the Ark, and over time, they successfully automized the entire repair process. The Ark took about 3 months to return to its functional state, but the Halo rings could not catch a break as a bunch of scientists who were studying Installation 03 accidentally activated it. They had somehow located the ring's composer, but the Didact rushed to a station near the ring to get to the composer while the Covenant and their allies also tried to get their hands on the composer. The Covenant was trying to control Installation 03 as they hoped to open the slip space portals with its help, but their plan was thwarted by the Spartan headhunter. Soon enough, the Didact was also defeated, and the Forerunner somehow found himself on Installation 03 alongside his Promethean allies through a slip space portal. They ended up coming across the Spartan 2 blue team, and a fight soon broke out. Whilst this fight started the Installation 03, it ended up all the way on the Composer's Forge, while the Forge's monitor transported Installation 3 to the Didact so that he could use it to destroy humankind for once and all. While this was the programming in place, Installation 03 seemed to disagree with the Didact and ended up fighting alongside the Spartans to defeat the Forerunner. Amid all this chaos, John 117 disabled the Halo's failsafe, and Static Carillon pulled some stunts that ensured that the Halo's monitors stabilized themselves and took the ring far away for necessary repairs. The following year, Installation 00 once again became a place for opposing factions to fight each other as a mercenary organization called the Banished attacked the UNSC base on the Ark and even established their dominance on the installation. The next year, the UNSC Spirit of Fire was transported to the Installation 00 under mysterious circumstances, and the conflict between the UNSC and the Banished forces worsened until Professor Ellen Anders stepped in to deal with them. Professor Ellen got wind of the installation that had been newly prepared and stored at the Ark's foundry, and she decided to launch it at Installation 04's previous site in the Soal system. This system was close enough for the UNSC to get help from it in the form of a distress beacon, and Professor Anders even disabled the Halo's firing ring. While things seemed to be in place, a Guardian intercepted the Halo ring and forced it out of the slip space. Around October 2559, the Banished forces' continued attempts to open a slip space portal to Reach were successful, and they managed to transport Atriox's forces back into the Milky Way galaxy through it. While the portal was open, Castor and his group of the Keepers of the One Freedom took this chance to hijack Atriox's Lich and use the portal to travel to the Ark. Here, they hoped to use the Ark to fire the array to kickstart their great journey. Meanwhile, the Keepers joined hands with Prelate Dars Barsvod and his Covenant on the Ark, who were working under the guidance of Forerunner Interpret I. They hoped to fire the array to get rid of the domain and defeat Cortana, but they faced a lot of resistance from the Banished as well as the UNSC. While the Banished and the UNSC were opposing forces, they shared the same view that the Keepers and Barsvod must not succeed. In a clash among these powerhouses, the Covenant and Keepers suffered great damage, and they had to abandon their plan once the UNSC forces destroyed the Ark's ability to fire the array. The UNSC managed to destroy most of the Keepers' forces, but Castor and Sangheili Bladesmaster Inslan Gadogai managed to survive, and Barsvod also decided to take his leave and rejoin his old forces. About 3 months later, the Banished took over Installation 07 to look for the Zilanian forces that had been imprisoned in the ring by the Forerunners. Soon enough, the UNSC arrived at the scene to deal with them, and they ended up in an intense battle that resulted in heavy losses on both sides. Around May 2560, the harbinger of the Zilanian species finally managed to locate her people, but sadly, the Master Chief killed her before she could do anything to free them. However, her death was not in vain, as Atriox soon reached a facility on Zeta Halo and located the Zilanian species Silexes. As the issue was resolved, Installation 07 was once again subject to great damage, and this time around, Cortana managed to ship the ring from its location in the Ipsu system to an unknown location. While this location was not revealed, Lieutenant Murphy made a calculated guess regarding its location and believed it might have been shifted away all the way into intergalactic space. Marvelous verdict. To wrap things up, the Halo Ring or the Halo Array is a mere fragment of the Halo universe, and they are considered in high regard owing to the fact that the galaxy's survival was only possible through their creation. From defeating sentient life from the Flood to the role they played in the Human Covenant War, these Halo Rings have shaped the outcome of any major crisis faced by the galaxy, and we hope this video provided some insight into their functioning. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.